Hi, I'm Seamless, and today I want to talk to you about Faceplant. I also want to talk to you about Kilohearts. Kilohearts is the people who made Faceplant, and together with ImageLine, the people who made FL Studio, they're coming together to do a pretty epic sale. You can get Faceplant itself for 50% off, and you can also get a bundle with Faceplant plus a bunch of extra important things like Multipass, which is a multi-band effect rack sort of situation. It's like in between nothing and Patcher. So if you don't want to go full Patcher, you could use this thing, and it's basically Patcher. And then there's even another one of those called Snap Heap, which I'm pretty sure came first. But it's this sort of parallel serial situation where you can make things together in a more linear situation, but you can still do split stuff. That could be important for, I mean, you can even make a multi-band in here if you felt like it. But it's a lot easier to do that inside Multipass. Plus you get this external visual of what's happening, plus you can control the big important things, plus you can put macros like in here. There's presets for these situations that are pretty awesome, like this guy, which is exactly what that implies. It's exactly like the OTT compressor, which stands for over the top, which means it's a multi-band smasher that smashes things together. And look, you get the nice, like, you get the macros, and that's super cool. So I recommend the hell out of getting these things, especially if you like the complicated results of what you can accomplish with something crazy like Reactor, but you don't want to go that hard, and you also like things like Serum that just are very visually where things are and are actually trying to help you to get things done. So that's Faceplant in my mind. If you're an FL user and you know me, then you know that what I'm typically about is I like to pick the plugin that's like the best at what it is and how it can do what it does. So, in my mind, Harmor represents what's currently the best of what can be additive synthesis. And it does things that are fun in the way that I like to do them, and to get the sounds that I want, the best. Like, there are other additive synthesizers that can kind of also do that, but require a type of work that either is too much work to get something simple like this, or it's also very just limited to do the things that it can do because it doesn't want to give you the billions of options that this thing does. And that's fine, you know. There's different styles of a producer. I'm the type that likes the very, like, dive into things, which is why before Faceplant, I would have said that this is the best available FM option if you're going to do FM-based anything. And for a long time, that, like I said, that was true, but, like, there's actually come a time now, finally, where there is something I can say that is better at this sort of thing than Citrus is. And that thing is Faceplant. Now, there's also one extra thing, because FL itself doesn't exactly have a thing that is like as good as, for example, Serum at the creation of wavetables, because Serum, as a massive step up from Massive, allowed you to actually make your own tables, which is pretty, like, just an epic choice in general. And that changed everything about what sound design was for a long time. And for a long time, also, this meant that this environment was the best just wavetable system on top of, well, you know, if you're going to be that kind of into it. There's also, like there's Reactor, you can just make kind of whatever. There are also better wavetable systems, but not as easily accessible. Not as, oh, I see where stuff is. I know where to go. I know how to do stuff. Like, that's what the beauty of something like Serum. It is, however, it's kind of limited. And that's the choice it made to be what it was, and it was perfect for the time. And it honestly kind of still is, because the middle ground between Serum and this is a plugin called Vital, which is, it's kind of complicated. It's just a lot more simpler to look at. And then there's this, which is the last step before something becomes just a DAW, because this basically just is a DAW with one extra step. If there was an arrangement window in here with some sequencing, it'd be a DAW. But before it is that, it's also just actually still does the things you needed to do. Oops. And this is a bunch of the favorited stuff I've picked out of the content banks that come also with the sale, because on top of the thing and the other two plugins, plus also an extra plugin, the Convolver, and some impulses, you get a whole bunch of packs of stuff. And there is lots of neat things in here, like the Black Sun Empire things. Step sample. Oh, and then just like a whole mess of nonsense. That makes sense. So this is a nice environment for having if you're sort of the preset type, which like that's its own kind of art, and there's this available, like you can Google a lot. There's a lot of presets for this that people have made that are pretty vast and epic, but also you can straight up just kind of have your own fun making your own stuff. Like for example, the thing we made with what did we do with Citrus earlier? Let's actually make something like that here, right? Let's make, actually, I picked that, but let's pick a wavetable. Let's just use this and go get like, I don't know. I actually kind of do know. Something ridiculous, like FM itself. Kind of make it noisy, and then one of my favorite effects that's actually kind of new to this is having one of these. And then what I wanted to do after that was distort it. Distort it. I wanted to show this little relationship off because what all of this was and is doing right now is very similar to what it's like to work with hardware. And that's one of the best things about Faceplant is that if this plugin had existed before I had bought most of the hardware I have, I would not have bought most of the hardware I have. I wouldn't have been ready for the fact that you can actually do the straightforward like hardware manipulation based elements inside like Faceplant the way that we do. Because I just showed off like FM in general. Like let's actually just show off the interface for a second. Because you can do pretty basic like digital FM where you manipulate something's phase. And I love how visual Faceplant is, by the way. Fits in with FL's user aesthetic where we like to see what's happening. So here's what's special about this. The way that FM works in a digital situation, like with Citrus, for example, is that instead of modulating the pitch directly by whatever your source is, you're actually just modulating the phase, which has a similar result, but a little bit different. For example, the saw wave, it has this one flat line that's one angle this whole time, and so you see this one pitch as this is one pitch the whole time. It changes because of the big map, but it doesn't actually change. Though, if I decide to take this target and target it to one of the other pitch parameters, which I can, you actually see a little bit how you expect the pitch change to look like. You see that it's getting lower, pitch gets higher, and pitch gets lower, and pitch gets higher, and pitch. It's actually like it stays a low value, stays there, and then it gets faster, and then it slows down again. That way, that as though the pitch itself were changing. And that's what you're supposed to see happen when you modulate something's pitch. So, and then here's an example of what it would look like. Like this is a square wave. So one value, one other value. So we have one value, one other value on pitch. That makes sense. If I want that to happen, though, with the phase targeting, I have to use a triangle wave, where now we have one value and one other value. Because on phase targeting, it's the slope that matters. And then we have one value and one other value, one unchanging slope and one other unchanging slope. Now, you use a sine wave. It actually looks pretty similar to what sine wave looks like on both. And that's because the change of slope of a sine wave is a sine wave. Isn't that fun? And here we are looking at and like just doing this. This is just happening in a digital environment right in front of us. And that's it's tough to overstate how cool that is. It's a little bit available. It's more available than it used to be. Like Vital, for example, has really, really fast LFOs that you can use to basically be on your rate to do this sort of thing. But you're not going to see it in the math like that. And that's what I like about Faceplant as a big thing. Because then you're able to be real specific about how you see. Like, for example, I did the ring modulation earlier. And when you do full ring mod, usually something like this happens. You get rectification, where it has a ball on one side and it's kind of weird, but when really what I wanted to happen was do like a kind of half on, half off situation. And I can now see where the threshold of that is. And I also just know it, but you know, you can tell what is happening as opposed to having to guess ahead on some stuff. So self-modulation and also feedback. So you can have the thing FM a thing, and you can have that same chain FM itself back. You know, to potentially devastating results. Huh, I didn't even change the pitch and it's reasing. But that's actually pretty regular for like analog-based sort of connections like this. I call it analog-based. I guess what I should be calling it is real. It's not really... It's just very tough to discuss it because usually you can just separate the idea that like, oh, this is not happening digitally because it's just not a thing that someone set up. And also we don't have hardware that can actuate this fast. And we do now. Speaking of incredibly CPU intensive things, one of the things that's also nice about Faceplant is its ability to do the poly mapping. And I actually kind of don't do this super a lot, and it's because it could be kind of insane on the CPU. And although it does give us really awesome results, if we do like something fun and basic, like let's make ourselves a like a whippy. Then I'm gonna distort it. Oh, cool! It's already automating them to be different. I guess I have to. So if I want it to be mono, you have to tell it to be that way. All right. Now, when we do poly, you can hear it. It was calculating more. Oh, and also you can see it happen. But when I go to make an effect, like if I put in, let's say, ensemble, reverb, and then distortion. Like on one note, this will probably sound okay. The second I play two notes, that happens. And that's because even though these are generating more than one of itself, this is only generating one of itself, and both of those are being smashed into one distortion chain. Unless I do that. Now what's happening is every single note gets an entire and its own effect, just like instance. Sorry, I didn't mean to make that loud. But yeah, this is really fantastic for generating really, really good pads, really good big super chord stacks and whatnot, because usually the way you do that is by making individual instances per note of whatever it is you're doing, and then things are just different. But the usual difficulty being that like processing in more than one time meant and required entire different lanes. And this just does that automatically. It makes every note a lane, and selectively even, because this is doing that for this, but we can make it not do it for this. So we could put this whole big stack into like one lane of compression, so we can have it not clip like we just did, and then everything's good. Yay. So that is an impressively complex bit of routing that absolutely was something I could build out of something like Patcher, like, you know, just to give you an example of how that would work. If I wanted to, you know, do that for myself, I make my Patcher, I make the thing, and then I use one of these. I have a VFX color mapper that lets me output a different lane, because now that's what that's about, per color. And then I'd have to come in here into the piano roll and then have to put out a note and then use a different color for every one of my notes in my chord. Then inside Patcher, I'd have to have whatever it is I'm doing, like Harmor, for example. And then I need to have a clone of what I'm doing, and I have the settings all be right and whatever. And then usually after I get this far as to have them actually be set up and layered, is basically I'm done making changes, right? Like, and then yeah, this is basically what would have just happened. Oh yeah, and then with also the idea that I have like whatever my effects chain is, like let's say I have a reverb, and I have one on every one of these individually. This is what Faceplant just did automatically. And then the discussion of having a limiter at the end would be, where the heck is a limiter? I just put a whole bunch of stuff in here, so that means that everything's moved around. Limiter, where are you? Well, you know what? Whatever, Maximus. Fine. But this would be like I put a snap heap right there. Actually, you know what? I don't even have to be like I put a snap heap there. I know where the snap heaps is. Multipass. Let's do it. There it is. And you can even grab the knot. It's in dynamics. Boop. It's basically what Maximus can do. So Maximus can do more than that, but if I did this with Maximus, this is effectively OGT. So anyway, that would have been the whole, like, a way of getting what we just discussed to happen. And as you can tell, it's also not as versatile insofar as playing and changing and having. This just lets us do all of that. This is exactly what this is. And it just happens automatically per note. And I can play more notes. I can play more than 4 notes. It depends on my CPU. Woo. But because again, I'm not really doing a lot. But if I, you know, tread with care, I suppose, if you're gonna attempt this sort of thing. But it's all very possible. And that wasn't anywhere near as complicated as having to set up the way we did it with Patcher, but it's still doing the thing that is intensely complicated. And that's just such art, the art of the software that I love, this stuff. And I'm also a big fan of the way it all works inside things like Multipass, because it still has all those fun little doobers in here. So you get to use things like, you know, it has a pitch tracker, and the pitch tracker is like okay at its job, which is fine. And I don't think there's a way to output. Huh. Oh yeah, it's reading the band. It can read the bands, or it can read these to not see what's happening. Okay, cool. Anyway, moral of the story here is that, like, you get to like put this in post on stuff and use it inside FL. You don't actually have to have that limited to being in there, and you get to be able to, like, still use some of the crazy architecture, like piecemeal outside into even more complicated things. It's really stretching the use and terminology of what makes something modular. Because in my experience, the modularity of a thing mostly just meant signal in and out, and this is an intense, like, process modularity that normally would be way too complicated to even suggest having access to for someone who's not, like, basically already coding this kind of thing for themselves in Reactor. You know what I mean? So to have this amount of functionality and something that's actually usable is incredible. And I recommend everybody who even cares even slightly about that kind of power, go and get it, because it's on super sale right now, or eventually in the ImageLine store, probably right now. I'm actually really sure when this video is coming up. Process. But you should go get it regardless. Like I would, if I didn't have it, I would have. And then also consider the big bundle. If you're big into, like, just producing a big wide range of stuff, the packs that you get out of here are very effective, and they probably have most of some sounds that you're ready to go and need to have anyway. And it's also just a great educational tool for learning how the architecture works, because then you get to poke around with how some pretty neat producers went and did stuff themselves. Yep, so half off Faceplant, or 75% off a big old bundle of Faceplant and Snap Heap and Multipass, which I kind of recommend. And then outside of that, these filters and, like, plugins and nonsense that are in here, these sort of basic non-doers, are actually available as plugins by themselves for free. If you go to the Kilohearts website and you look at the products, there's a free page, and there they are. It's called the Essentials, and I kind of recommend them. They're sort of smaller, more focused, purpose-built versions of things that are still very functional, that, like, are just for, like, low CPU use, because they're designed to fit into something that's not low CPU use. Yeah. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and to check out the Kilohearts sale. And as usual, have a nice day.